How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you again, Nick.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. We got to see you at the beginning of the event, and now we get to see you at the end of the event.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really wonderful to reconnect to all the people that have been really interested and inspired by these traditions and this process.
Yeah, I mean, we've been getting so many awesome questions. You know, we always get questions like this after screenings of the sacred science, and you know, they're inspiring. I'm sure that the ones that we picked out here, I think are questions that we feel a lot of people have been asking. So, you know, I'm just excited to kind of give some answers to these. I think that, you know, when people watch the movie The Sacred Science, they're opened up to a whole new world of possibilities. So obviously they're left with, you know, some follow-up questions that they want to have answered. So let's get right into it. Question number one that just came in it goes like this. I've always known there was something more to this reality, and the sacred science has opened up a Pandora's box of inner possibilities. What can I do to further explore these shamanic healing traditions in a conscious way?
You know, the shamanic traditions have always been based on this journey of self-realization, the journey of really seeing the universe outside of us as a mirror reflection of the inner universe. And the indigenous people, they often recognize this practice of seeing, just like seeing the sun and the earth and all the elements as certain symbols of inner experience. And so the Mother Earth, for example, is recognized as a symbol of that compassionate heart, of that support and nourishment and love that she constantly gives to everyone, no matter what. Then the sun is often seen as the symbol of consciousness, is that light of consciousness that allows us to get to know the depth of love in our lives. And so it's that union of the sun and the earth that allows all life to be created. So that's something that each individual can do within themselves, is really start getting to know the depth of love for oneself that this world is really nourished by.
So do you feel like, I mean, are we sort of talking also about masculine and feminine? Are we sort of going into the energies that course through us, you know, the idea that maybe in the Western world we sort of associate, you know, if you're a male, you sort of figure that you just have male energy, and you know, if you're a female, I mean, that feels like that's how I was raised. I'm not saying that I was brainwashed, but feels like people don't necessarily associate with the opposite gender or even with the same gender sometimes. So, you know, are you saying that this is sort of a balancing of feminine, masculine energy within ourselves?
Very much so, and it's more than just you know, the feminine and masculine. It's really what are all of those qualities within us that we can relate to feminine and masculine. And then we can see, you know, just like the shamans, you know, they work with the energy of the eagle and the condor. They work with the energy of the rivers and the clouds and the water, and all of those different energies, they may be expressed under those main two complementary opposites in the universe. However, there are so many connotations to that the universe outside of us in all of its multitude and variety really serves as a mirror reflection of all of those different qualities within each one of us that have to be reciprocate, that we learn through this life journey to bring together into this unity of diversity so that our highest potential can be in the greatest benefit of ourselves and everyone else.
We could talk about that for hours. Let's just let's move on just to get through some questions. Let's that we'll continue on that strand, I'm sure, with some articles and maybe even a dedicated talk just to that principle. I love that. Question number 2, what do you say to people who want to work with the herbs they see in the film? What should they do and how should they get them?
Well, that's a really interesting question, because the documentary, The Sacred Science, it focuses on the herbs as a complementary factor to people's healing journey. However, each healing journey is unique. And this is something that sometimes Western medicine is not really, in line with. Because in the Western medicine, if someone is, for example, diagnosed with a specific disease, then there are specific pharmaceuticals for that disease. However, within the Amazonian healing traditions, you can have 2 people with the same disease, but there will be very different plant medicines and a healing approach based on many factors of their lives, based on their personality, based on the issues that they're encountering, whether this illness is associated more with dampness or whether it's more associated with heat or cold. So many factors actually come into developing a certain healing strategy. And we often also have in Paititi Institute, people come to us and tell us, okay, what is the herb for this specific illness? But it doesn't really work like this in healing traditions. There has to be a consideration of many different facets of that individual's life. And then based on that, the plant medicines that are brought into the healing process, the plant medicines, they often also relate to particular emotions and feelings that individual may have a hard time processing in their lives. And so this is definitely not done in the same way as in the Western medicine, where there is a magical pill that will just cure that particular disease, which even in the Western medicine, it doesn't work in that way, right? Because the symptoms are treated, but not the source of the disease. The 99% of diseases in Western medicine are considered to be idiopathic, which means that there is no known cause. And then, of course, the treatment is for the symptoms.
So you're saying, if people want to start getting involved in the herbs that they saw in the film, they need to do a lot more work than simply seeing that, say, Joel was taking Tawari and saying, "Oh, I've got type 2 diabetes too. I'm going to start taking Tawari now because that's obviously what'll cure me." I mean, obviously, the C word is like, no one, we don't usually like to say that, but what's a starting off point for them to start asking those questions? I mean, if they can't come down to the jungle and see you or see the healers that are there, what do they do? I mean, to start getting in touch with what they need?
Well, the starting off point, actually, we mentioned in the previous question, that entailed really starting to get to know oneself. For example, my grandfather, he suffers from diabetes, and I tried to help him. And based on his symptoms and conditions, I gave him the plant medicine Uña de Gato, which is known to be very good for diabetes. And actually, he started to experience improvement, in his blood sugar levels and things like that. However, he then began to experience bouts of uncontrollable anger. And then he had to discontinue the use of Uña de Gato. Wow. Because he started to get very angry, and just in many different situations. And he didn't know how to deal with that anger. So even though on a physical level it was helping him, because he didn't know how to deal with his emotions, then it was actually more detrimental.
Okay.
And so the first step that we really encourage people with is really starting to get to know themselves, establishing that relationship, and learning how to work through, different unprocessed energies. Sometimes people may not even be connected to their feelings and emotions initially, and that may be suppressed. So then the first step is actually get in touch with that, such as the case with my grandfather, where that was the case where for a long time he was suppressing his anger, and then it was just like a champagne bottle opening up. And so then, he had to really make a choice whether he wants to start developing that relationship and dealing with all of those emotions that he was avoiding in his life. And at that point, he wasn't ready to do it.
Beautiful. Another question that you and I could probably go off for about 30 to 45 minutes, just continuing to kind of tease out. But we'll move on from there. That was a good nugget, I believe. Next question. During the San Pedro ceremony in the movie, the patients are engaging in some very interesting exercises, and I was wondering if you could explain some of them. Are these a traditional Amazonian practice or from some other region of the world? Yeah, they're talking about what was going on in the Maloka during the San Pedro ceremony. Like some of the qigong and the eye gazing.
Well, obviously qigong is not from the Amazon. It's a traditional Chinese medicine practice, and actually there is a similar practice that is based on the same principles in the Indian culture. And the teacher that introduced it to me, the Indian Inca descendant that I learned the San Pedro tradition from, he referred to it as Kuntur. And these are very similar practices that involve basically different energetic positions of the body, sometimes imitating maybe a condor flying in the sky, or the connection to the heavens or the earth, and being that active link. That is very much the same principle in the traditional Chinese medicine, where one learns how to really become an active link between the heaven and the earth, between those polar opposites, and work with this life energy within one's organism that is not some kind of a mystical energy, but is a psychic energy. It's the energy of feelings, emotions, states of being. And so then it relates, of course, to everything else that we've been talking so far. And
the interconnectedness that we always talk about.
In a very similar way, the Amazonian and Chinese medicine traditions, and Indian as well, they work with this life energy that they mention is being dispersed by our many different focuses in life, by many different thoughts. So the life energy goes where thoughts go. So if I'm thinking about many different things in my life and I'm not really being present, then the life energy that is necessary for the vital functions of the organism is being dispersed, and then sickness arises. So a lot of the indigenous practices, they focus on being present, really abiding in this natural state of restfulness. In the rainforest, as you remember, it almost happens naturally, where the indigenous people, they just naturally maintain that state of harmony with nature. And so then these practices, they are all gearing towards that. So that's relating to the Qigong practice. And of course, the Kuntur practices that are done in the Indian tradition, there is some of the modern interpretation of it that's been done by Alberto Villoldo, that is called Munaiki, which the Keros actually refer to it as the Munaichi, but it is based on the same principles. Then the other practice that we often do with our participants and people who go through the healing process is the breath work. And the breathwork modality that we do during the San Pedro Wachuma ceremony, for example, is actually an Amazonian practice that comes from the Yanomami tribe in the Orinoco Basin. And I learned it originally from a Witoto elder who has spent significant periods of time with Yanomami people during his youth and learned it from them. And that is a practice that again brings people in touch with the different energy centers in the body, with the different emotions, feelings, and allows one to come out of the head and into the heart, into the ability to fully be awake. So that's another one.
How about the eye? How about the eye gazing?
Oh,
the
I
eye
really
gazing.
love that. So the soul gazing, the way we refer to it, actually something that I have noted is available in different traditions around the world. And it's a practice that is done in the Japanese tradition sometimes. There's different modalities within the Japanese tradition, and Zen Buddhism being one of them. Another one, I've seen that references to that also in the Hindu tradition, something that they refer to as part of a satsang, or a certain blessing that comes through. And then also in the Indian tradition, it's also a practice that is done between people, and it's a practice that is also defined to be very deeply healing. And the most healing part about this practice is to be able to drop all personalities, all appearances, and be vulnerable in each other's eyes. And maybe the first 1 or 2 minutes, people try to kind of be nice to each other and smile and only show their good side. But then after a while, it becomes kind of uncomfortable. And all of the things start to come to the surface. The more that you try to avoid showing something, the more that it starts to be shown. And the practice is actually a practice that we refer to as a universal love and compassion exercise. And it's also referring to a Tibetan tradition that we work with very deeply. Our main traditions are Tibetan, Amazonian, and Indian that we work with in our institute. And in the Tibetan tradition, a lot of focus is on this state of compassionate presence. And of course, if I don't know how to really be with myself and how to embrace all of my own issues, then it will be hard for me to be with others. So in this way, being vulnerable in each other's eyes allows each one of us to accept all the issues that we have both inside, in ourselves, and in each other. And this is a practice that initially can be very challenging because there is nowhere to hide. And at the same time, specifically because of that, it allows this profound ability to accept oneself and the other person. And there is a lot of healing in that.
Is it something that you advise? Is it something that people could try with their partners, with their friends? Is it something that people could do that you would advise doing without the guidance of someone who's experienced with it?
You know, I find in my experience that it's good to do this practice first, you know, within a group setting, and definitely someone who's experienced, because what ends up happening when people just try to do it with each other without that, the intensity initially starts rising, this psychic intensity, and then people start to want to giggle or look away, you know, and start to make jokes and say, oh, this is stupid, this is silly, I don't want to be doing this, and then are not able to really get into the practice. And so initially within a group setting and with experienced practitioners, there is more of an awareness and guidance.
So another conversation that we could have for another hour here. I mean, I think that last point, it's a defense mechanism, people not willing to face themselves on such a deep level. It underlines a lot of the work that is done in the film, you know, a lot of the work that the patients have to do, and a lot of the work that I think people need to do. They want to heal this, you know, using the methods that are shown in the film. That's a big part of it, is that just a willingness to go into those places of discomfort and really look into yourself and stop playing tricks on yourself and distracting yourself from what's really going on.
Yeah, I really find that that is the essence of the indigenous wisdom traditions. It's not about, some kind of alchemical secrets. It's more about this container and support for individuals to really face themselves deeply. Because otherwise, I have to be honest, in my life, even though I was very serious about facing myself, without that container and guidance and support, my ego would trick me every time and, and find its way out, even though I was very set on it.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, really, these indigenous communities, people that are coming together based on a deeper purpose and intention, and really support each other in that way, is something that our modern world could really use in today's environment. And so even people that are not able to come to the Amazon rainforest, they can still reach out within their community and find people that are resonant with their intention, and groups that come together and do different practices and have different workshops and retreats that allow this awareness to come deep, that really provide this support, this supportive holding space, so that there is no way to go out of it. So that one has no other choice but really face themselves and do it together with others.
That actually dovetails really nicely into this next question we have. Someone asked just a simple question of, can I find ceremonies like ayahuasca and San Pedro here in the United States or Europe?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the cat is out of the box. That's no longer a secret, and or the bag. And these ceremonies right now are spread throughout the whole world. And definitely it shows that the awareness of these indigenous cultures and wisdom that they bring is growing, and also it can dilute some of that essence. So there are a lot of people that are doing these ceremonies today that haven't really gone through the longer enough initiation process, and traditionally, like more or less, it was about 3 years of immersion in the rainforest, and that's what I've done with different teachers of mine. But it's not something that is written in stone, and it's been, for me, it's been 15 years, and I'm continuously learning more and more. And it's something that today many people in our fast-moving society are kind of dismissing, and sometimes people who are not very qualified are more so available. And so yeah, there is ayahuasca ceremony, in places like New York. I hear it's happening in every city block, but it's more than just ingestion of the plant, right? And this is again what we've been talking about in terms of the magic pill. A lot has to do with the guidance of the traditional context. The guy really understanding how to really bring the inner and outer universes together, how to understand the intuitive language of the organism, how not to fall into the trap of the conceptual conditioned mind, which is something that I often deal with. I have quite often people write to me and say, I've been working with ayahuasca or other plants with different shamans, and after several years now, I'm experiencing all kinds of problems in my life. And I have those different spirits that are attaching to me and all kinds of entities, and I don't know what to deal with. And so essentially, there's a very different mentality in the indigenous tradition, and it takes time to really integrate it and understand what it means in Western terms and how to apply it into one's life. Otherwise, it just remains on this mystical, phantasmagorical circus level, and For the benefit to come through, it necessitates a deeper introduction into the nature of the soul, of the psyche, of this process of evolutionary healing, the transformation of consciousness. And this is something that I don't see very often, unfortunately. I would love to see more of that. And, in our organization, we do everything that we can to really raise that awareness, and we share articles and with sacred science as well. And definitely this is something that I feel responsible to really bring to people's attention, that it's not just about drinking ayahuasca, but it's doing it in a supportive container with people that are qualified, with people that are not just doing it as a kind of, and commercial enterprise or some kind of a sideshow attraction, but people who are truly dedicated to that. And this is something that I would love to see more of.
Aho to that. Last question for you. Many of the principles I've seen in the film remind me of Buddhist practices and belief systems. Is there a similarity between these two cultures? And if so, can you explain them?
Sure, I can try a little bit. Well, in these cultures, there's many different levels of realization. Also in Buddhism, of course, and also in the indigenous Amazonian and Indian traditions that we work with. In Buddhism, it may be a little bit more straightforward. However, in the indigenous traditions, they are considered to be mystery initiation paths, where when people just come into these traditions, they may not find many similarities. They may see it more in an extroverted way, external forces, elements unrelated to the inner process. However, as one starts to go through that journey of initiation, the rites of passage, then gradually it becomes more and more apparent how interconnected it is, and how it's not bound by superstition, and really relates to this deep intuitive state of presence, of interconnectedness, of reciprocity, of openness, of coming out of this rigid personality shell, this understanding of emptiness, of the inherent solid separation that Buddhism refers to. Many people that I see sometimes think about the emptiness in Buddhism as this kind of like zombie apathetic state, right? And in the Amazonian tradition, some people also, they think that all it's about is some kind of superstitious external forces. So there's all kinds of misconceptions that we have in our today's world. However, in Buddhism, what emptiness means is not just this emptiness that is zoned out, but it means the emptiness of inherent existence, which relates to reciprocity and interconnectedness. My life is not independent from all the people that I've ever met, all the situations that made me who I am. And so when I really consider that, then I can open up the possibilities for my life to truly unfold the highest potential. And it's very much the same way in the Amazonian and Indian traditions when you go deep enough into them. However, that requires definitely going through those rites of passages, having good teachers, having good guidance in that way. The teachers are not some kind of gurus that wear a fancy dress and a feather. The teachers are human beings who can really express through their life example how each one of us can be a more complete, more heart-centered human being.
Thank you for that. That was as usual in these little sessions that you and I do. I get like the borrowed benefit of being able to hear the wisdom again through the questions of our audience. But yeah, that was extraordinary. Thank you for taking the time to answer all these questions.
Yeah, I also deeply appreciate, this inquiry that you have, and the sacred science has been unfolding into, because this is the inquiry that allows these traditions to really show their essence rather than just be a museum attraction, something that can really be practical and vital in our lives. And I truly appreciate that as well. I think I'll borrow a quote from someone that I really love and respect deeply in my life, and I'll say, "Stay curious."
Do I really look that way?
No, but that's how I imagine it.
All right, brother. Send everyone down there our love.
Much love, many blessings.
Can't wait to see you again.